Hi, this is Eva for Once Upon a Timeline. Welcome, everybody. I'm actually on time today. I'm not 3 minutes late, so it's a small miracle. All right, let's see who's in. Teresa Lynch was number one. Whoops, no, wait. I thought she was number one. I lied. Flor Candia was number one. Roger Prescott, Mark, Teresa Lynch was number 4. Jumping Ship, Mark. Whoops, where'd that go? Mark Haya, welcome. Oh no, Mark. It's Mark. Off to a good start today. Da, 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 da. Little Itty Bitty Show is in. David Kent. Preliminal. Tomas Chitkowski. Shari D, welcome, welcome. Intrepid. I'm pretty sure I already said Jumping Ship, but if I didn't, I'm saying it again. Heart's Truth is in. KDB, Broad's Nets Caster. Ooh, it's now a bunch of people coming in. Maria. Okay, I think that's everybody. Okay, so yeah, it's been like really hot finally. It's been a really nice summer. Not too bad up till now. So it's been like nearly 100 degrees. And the humidity is nearly 100 degrees. So it is not a dry heat. So yeah, can't complain too much because the whole summer's been pretty nice. I know a lot of people are saying it's was really warm by them. It's actually been kind of on the cool side for us the last 2 summers, so can't complain. I'm hoping that maybe one of the MEs will be that the hot places will cool down and the cool places will warm up. Maybe it'll get like, more of a moderate world. That's my plan and I'm sticking to it. But meanwhile, I have to complain about the sea for a while. I have to. Don't have too many complaints about the sea, but here we go. Okay. In a slightly chilling move, New Zealand, who has almost no cases of the sea, has decided that if they do get any cases, they will be forcibly, as far as I can tell, you won't have a choice, removed to quarantine facilities. The government will send all confirmed community cases of the sea to a quarantine facility instead of allowing them to recover at home. From other stuff I read, it also sounds like they may grab like your family too. So basically, if you get if you get tested positive, now we don't know how reliable that is. Confirmed cases, so it sounds like you'd have to get tested. You will be forced to go to a facility, and I'm pretty sure that you probably won't get visitors or anything. I mean, hopefully it's nothing, but we'll have to see how many more places follow this. Okay, so speaking of the unreliability of the tests, this one, I haven't really... Okay, I found this video on another channel, which was, it was TMF Productions, and then I realized earlier today, just like an hour ago, that they were actually mirroring it, and that this is the original person that put this up. So one thing interesting about this is TMF Productions is not a Mandela site. I've never seen anything about Mandela on there that I've seen. So I click on this original just to see what's up, and it turns out that this person is a Mandela channel. Changing Matrix is the channel name. And I haven't had any time to actually watch any of the others because I just figured this out. Because I saw that name, I'm like, Changing Matrix. So I just go, well, I'll just go over and see what videos they've got, just out of the off chance that there would be anything Mandela-like. And it turns out this is a Mandela channel. So it's kind of weird to just like run into a Mandela person in the wild at random when you're looking at a non-Mandela channel. So, this person, I'm not sure if she's a nurse or what. It seemed like there was some other videos that kind of indicated it, but I haven't really delved into it properly. Okay, so you can watch the whole thing. It's called See It For Yourself .cev space 19. And so she's got this test results back, and she's blotted out the name of the person that these test results for. But basically, this was a test that was sent out for the sea, and okay, so it's interesting because she's saying what fishy stuff is on here, and so first it says this test has been authorized by FDA under a EUA for use by authorized laboratories. Okay, so it was sent out. This test has not been FDA cleared or approved. It's been authorized but not cleared or approved. But this is what they're using. So they sent out some a sample to the lab, and this is the test the lab's using. This test has been authorized only for the presence of IgM and IgG antibodies against SARS-CoV-2, not for any other viruses or pathogens. So it's been authorized only for antibodies against SARS-CoV-2. Okay, so that sounds all well and good. Okay. And then it talks about it's under emergency use for the sea. But then you get down here, and it gets fishy. Positive results may be due to past or present infection with non-SARS-CoV-2 coronavirus strains. And she's just going to read this off. I'm just going to play a little clip of her reading this off. You can scroll up and down and see the rest of it. Now, hopefully, you should be like hearing
Positive
this.
results may be due to past or present infection with non-SARS-CoV-2 coronavirus strains such as coronavirus HKU1, NL63, OC43, or 229E.
All right, stopping it there. I don't want to play her whole video, but she kind of goes over this a little bit. So these are the other C viruses that you can get all the time. They're like common flu viruses. So if you say got one of these coronas 2 years ago or 3 years ago and you still have antibodies, what's this saying is that if you have the antibodies from these other strains, you could test positive for the SARS-CoV-2. Okay, and it says maybe present or past infection. So you either had the C like 3 months ago and recovered, or you had one of these coronavirus flus 3 years ago and recovered. Any of those things can cause a positive result on this test. Okay, so how accurate are these tests? I'm still trying to figure out if I can trust any of them, but it really calls into question, like say you're in New Zealand and the tests aren't inaccurate and you get called out as a positive case and you have to go into quarantine against your will at some camp, and who knows how even accurate these tests are. So I think that's a serious concern. All right, let's see what you guys are chit-chatting about. Somebody told me that Atwater and Coalinga, California, somehow declared they were emancipated and are 100% open. Ooh, ho, 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 ho. I'm really curious about that now. All right, I'm going to have to look that up. I'm going to have to check into that. I know that some of the northeast areas have been very cagey about following all the closures. I mean, they didn't have very many cases, or shall I say, they didn't have very many hospitalizations, and they're just sort of not as, like, they're more Republican areas, so they're just a little bit more like baloney, and they were like kind of not following the orders, and then our Governor Newsom said, oh, well, we give them permission to open, because they were starting to open anyway. So he kind of solved that by saying, well, I gave them permission, but they had already opened before he gave them permission. So he kind of twisted it around and made it sound like he said they could, but that wasn't how it really went down. So I wouldn't be surprised if we would get some trouble from those regions. And it's an interesting thing, because what I'm seeing is a pattern where all the locations are are dividing back out. So as much as we talk about the New World Order and all that, what I'm actually seeing with the Mandelas and with the politics is more local independence and less centralized power. We're seeing weird little city states popping up all around in independent locations all around Europe. And now with this the sea thing, I'm seeing like first our governor kind of declared California like a nation state instead of just a state, kind of in opposition to Trump. But now he's trying to be a little he's a little power hungry acting, and so now we've got mayors and regions within California declaring themselves as I'm not going to do what you said, Governor Newsom, Gavin Newsom. And so it's just interesting to see these whole dynamics um, coming down the chute like this. Then we've got states kind of creating little alliances with neighboring states, like they're little countries or something. So interesting to watch this go down and see where this heads. I've known Changing Matrix from my Emmy beginnings on. I'm going to have to start watching. Heart's Truth. I think she's a pharmaceutical person. Interesting. Percentage of people not dying with the sea, 99.96%. Yeah. I'm so tired of talking to people about the mask and it not making them sick. It's like they're hypnotized. You know, I think this is another case where the truth is sort of down the middle of the two goalposts. You know, you've got the two sides. And I think, you know, for the average fairly healthy person that doesn't wear the mask all day especially, you will be okay. It's going to be a strain on your system, but you'll be fine. I don't think you're going to have any lasting damage or anything. And even if you do have to wear it all day, it's going to be tiring, but I don't think it's going to be worse than like a really tiring job. But if you've got, you know, airway problems, you're sick, you're a little bit older, you know, then you're starting to look at more of an issue. So I don't think it's like it's not gonna, you know, it's not the end of the world, but it is not completely harmless, you know. And so it kind of bothers me because everybody has to be so divided, you know. They don't even look at the research. So yeah, I don't recommend you wear that thing longer than necessary, certainly, but I don't think it's gonna. The average person, I think, will be fine. Especially if you don't have to wear it all day. I would not advocate wearing it in your car or at your house like they're starting to talk about, though. That's just ridiculous. Okay, so... And then the next stupid thing that we have to deal with now. What is the latest ridiculous stupid sign of symptom of the sea? I don't know where they're making this stuff up. We still don't have actual cancer yet, but they're working on like everything else in the entire freaking universe. And now hiccups are a sign of the sea. Are hiccups a sign of the sea? Here's what happened in this case. Okay, so watch this. There's a whole article. It's one case. They're advertising this as a less common symptom of the sea. I've seen it in a bunch of other articles. It's based on one case out of like how many gajillion people. Okay. After experiencing 4 days of persistent hiccups and an unintentional 25-pound weight loss over a 4-month period. All right, so later on they say it's probably not due to the sea that he lost 25 pounds. I ask you how many people accidentally, unintentionally lose 25 pounds over 4 months. There's something wrong with this guy. And 25 pounds, you know, unless he's like, it didn't say he was 500 pounds or anything. So that's very suspicious there. I mean, I guess we don't really know for sure when the sea started, but he had no like flu symptoms at all. No fever, blah, blah, blah. Okay. His only other medical problems seem to be diabetes, hypertension, and coronary artery disease. Well, there's two kind of serious ones. They make it sound like, oh, his only other problem. So he's got diabetes, hypertension, and coronary artery disease, and an unexplained 4-month, 25-pound weight loss, and then he got persistent hiccups. They were saying that his body temperature was 99.1 when he came in, which is a little elevated. And then later it got more elevated, and they tested him for SARS-CoV-2, and he had it. So he's got all these weird things wrong with him, a 25-pound weight loss over a 4-month period, and somehow they're sure that it's related to the sea. I mean, that's just ridiculous. One case, and they're advertising it. I mean, that's just completely ridiculous. It's ridiculous. But, you know, what's new? I think that one wasn't one I was planning to do. Just reading you guys now. Oh, you guys talk about that Beirut thing. Yeah, that Beirut explosion is highly suspicious. If you looked at it, it doesn't really look like any past fireworks explosions I've seen. It looks like some other kind of explosion. Okay, so that guy, they were actually saying they didn't think he had it for 4 months, but he lost weight for 4 months. So that's why they were saying he probably didn't have it for 4 months. Who the heck knows? But I mean, he's got all those other problems. So either he had the C for 4 months with no symptoms other than weight loss, or he has something else. If he has something else that caused you to lose 25 pounds, I'm betting that the hiccups were probably due to that. I put on muscle mass on demand and lose weight accidentally. It's not standard. Plus, he's got diabetes and cardiovascular disease. People who have diabetes usually don't lose weight by accident. Diabetes is kind of a weight gain kind of a problem. I mean, who the heck knows, but 25 pounds of weight loss alone could be a cause of hiccups, I would think. I was watching Alyssa Milano, and she's losing her hair from the sea. Well, she says it's from the sea. Who the heck knows? I mean, I don't know. A lot of this stuff is so suspicious. All these famous people got the sea, supposedly. And none of them got seriously ill. We never seen any of them look sick. Hair loss could be falling out because she got a crappy, perm or bad hair treatment, or she fasted too long, is not getting enough nutrients, or there's 100,000 reasons why it could be falling out. She was brushing her hair and showing it coming out. Yeah, maybe. One of the reasons I just don't trust it is I've just seen too many of these people saying they lost all this weight. They look exactly the same. That guy in the news, was it the governor of New York's brother, claiming all this ridiculous stuff, like he was eating triple normal and lost so much weight and all this stuff, and every day he had some new ridiculous story about having the C. Then he said he couldn't leave his basement, but then he was found gallivanting around town with his family without wearing masks. And then this is the time he was claimed that he was locked in his basement due to the sea. So that guy was such a big fat liar. So yeah, I don't know. It just seems like everybody and their uncle claiming to have the C now, and I just don't really see any evidence of it. Especially for these famous people. I mean, I'm sure there are people that are sick. There's something going on. I tend to suspect it is more of a shift sickness kind of a thing, really. My understanding is that losing weight is key for those with diabetes type 2. Diabetes type 1 is more blood related. Diabetes type 2 tends to gain weight. Diabetes type 1 can lose weight really easily because the type 1 has to take the insulin. And if you don't get your insulin balance just right, then you will, you won't, like, the nutrients that you eat won't go into your cells. So you can actually waste away. And then the sugar builds up in your blood and you just pee it out. So yeah, you can lose weight with type 1, but that's insulin dependent. That's not the normal diabetes. If they just say diabetes, it's generally type 2. A neighbor of mine had C, and he was rescued from being intubated by his GP. Just barely. They were prepping him, and the doc threw them out. He was convinced that they would have killed him. Yeah, lucky. I mean, I sure as heck, if I have anything to say about it, will not want to go on the vent as long as I can possibly get air using regular, the oxygen tubes under my nose. Vents are supposed to be the last case scenario when your lungs just can't, function otherwise. They shouldn't be slamming everybody on the vent. And traditionally, they don't. Traditionally, they try all the other ones first. Suddenly with the C, it was like straight to the vent. No, the whole decision-making process in the C has just been very, very, very suspicious on, like, so many levels. But, yeah, the C also follows a lot with what I've been saying with all the new autoimmune and inflammatory illnesses. That even with the C, they're saying that it's the cytokine storm, like your own body overreacting, that's killing these people. Just keep inflammation down. I really feel like I've also, the last couple of years, had a lot more problems with inflammation. It's such a vague term because you just know you don't feel that good. You don't really know why. But it seems like the more stuff I do to fight inflammation, the better. Like a lot of vitamin C, eating less carbohydrates, everything that fights inflammation seems to be my friend. So I would definitely recommend that people, magnesium, I just knew that I liked it, but I'm now realizing that's also anti-inflammatory. So yeah, definitely watch the inflammation. It can't hurt, I think it's frequency. Lower frequency people seem to be the ones getting sick or having issues. Well, guess I'm lower frequency then. Dum da da dum. Oh well, you are what you are. All right. Got that one. Got that one. Okay. That is all the world news. Boink. Now let's get on to the Mandelas. Okay, so now if your blood pressure is higher than 12.8, you have high blood pressure and should be treated. What a scam. Yeah, if I trusted their treatments better, there's always an excuse to give people more expensive medicines. I know 3 people, Native Americans, who were placed on ventilation and isolated. They all passed away. Yeah, it just seems like the vents do anything. And they isolate you because they say you have the C, so you can't get any backup. You can't get your people to stand up for you or keep an eye on you or make sure or advocate for you at all. And then you probably have all these doctors pushing you. They know what's best, supposedly. This is what you got to do. Don't worry, blah, blah, blah. It's very hard to say no to those people. It's one time when it really pays to be a stubborn person that doesn't listen, that you have to fight off and say no. And then they're pushing you to sign this DNRs, the do not resuscitates. You really, really, really got to be a stubborn person to go, no, I won't do that. I mean, the average person is just not going to fight back against all these, you know. It's like when you're going to the used car salesman, they send 3 salesmen out there to tell you all the ways that that you're being mean to them by asking to pay less. And it's hard. Then you got doctors doing it and you're sick already. All right. So, anyway, that's the complaint department for the doctors. Not that I dislike them all, but you know, there's been some doctors I really liked, and then but the majority kind of they just spit back what they were told, and most of them have never checked on any of this stuff. They've never researched any of it. And I sit down and I research all of it, and I go there, and they are not familiar with any of this stuff. A lot of times, not always. Okay, so this one is interesting. Photosynthetic animals. This one, a couple of people have mentioned these lately to me, these photosynthetic animals. But the one that brought it up first was this friend of mine online that we kind of correspond just through emails, and her name is PJ, and she's the one who pointed, it's not actually this one, this is an old one, but one that's coming up. So, about a couple years ago, and this one's been brought up several times, the only photosynthetic animal was this guy, I call it, looks like a piece of lettuce. Although the pattern has changed a little. It used to be a little more wavy looking. It really looks more like a leaf now. But when I first saw it, it was more like this look all the time. Yeah, more of this wavy look. Okay, so basically the story behind these have kind of, it keeps shifting around, but basically they eat the algae, and then they take the photosynthetic chloroplasts out of the algae. Instead of digesting it, they incorporate it into their own system and use the chloroplasts. So for a couple years, it was only this guy who did this, and I've been watching this thing because it kind of keeps shifting around. For a while, it made its own chloroplasts, parts of the chloroplast, but it stole other parts from the algae, and then for a while, it can only maintain the chloroplast for a few months, and now it's up to over a year, maybe, unknown. The story is getting really vague with these guys again, so I think there's going to be another shift. But yeah, I've been watching this one animal all this time, was the only animal. So suddenly now there's a whole bunch of these animals that are like half plant, half animal. And they have a word for the chloroplast stealing of the algae. It's now called kleptoplasty, and there's a whole slew of these animals that can do this kleptoplasty. And one of them is this guy. He's so cute. I'll put him up. It's called leaf sheep. So these also do it, and there are another one of these. What is that critter? Sacoglosson sea slugs. There's a whole slew of these sacoglossons, leaf sheep, nudibranch, sea slug. So it looks like a sheep, and they also are part photosynthetic animals. And then you've got this one. It's also a leaf sheep. Doesn't look as sheep-like as the other one. You can see there's quite a variation in these coloration of these leaf sheep. In my old timeline, you would basically have stuff, if they were all the same animal, they would look pretty much the same. And there's another one, and he's really white, but maybe he hasn't gotten all the algae in him yet. Let's see what else we got here. Let's close that one. There's another one with another look. Leaf sheep. And then they're kind of vague on how many of these really do the kleptoplasty. I kind of had trouble pinning that down. It looks like they're all working on it, though. Alright, so there's those. Then there's, so apparently quite a number of these nudibranchs, or however you pronounce those, and these sea slugs can do this. Alright, then there is a larger animal that can do it. I think that's this guy. I'm going to close these other ones out. So, even more interesting, now we've got this spotted salamander that has an aspect of photosynthetic symbiotic relationship with green alga Euphila amblystomatis. So, supposedly, they're when they lay their eggs, they have a jelly. I mean, they have an algae in the jelly, in the coating that creates a jelly that prevents the eggs from drying out. So the algae makes the jelly. The jelly prevents the eggs from drying out, but the jelly inhibits oxygen diffusion into the egg, which the embryo needs for development. So in exchange for preventing it from drying out, now you've got this oxygen problem. But by having the photosynthesis in there, with these algae, the algae breathe in carbon dioxide and let loose oxygen, and then the oxygen goes into the egg, and then the developing salamander can use that oxygen, which produces carbon dioxide, which then feeds the algae. So, this is another one of this creationist dreams, because it's very hard to imagine how this would happen with just regular Darwin's theory. Okay, so here's the interesting part. Photosynthetic algae are present within the somatic and possibly the germ cells of the salamander. So they're saying that this algae lives in the cells of the salamander. So you have to wonder where this algae comes from, because the adult salamander lays the eggs, and they're not getting the algae from the environment. It's already in the egg casing. So now they're saying that there's somehow this algae is stored inside the adult salamander somehow in the cells. So then if it's alive, it's going to have to be photosynthesizing, right? And maybe on the exterior of the salamander. It doesn't explain this, though. So they must be somehow surviving in the adult salamander and being fed and getting light or whatever that it is that they need. So then if they're doing all that in the adult salamander, then how do you know they're not actually feeding the salamander too? It's interesting. So, I mean, if the salamander is green or dark brown like this, and it's got these weird spots, are these spots going to be photosynthetic? Or I think we're going to get some more of this story coming out, because there's almost no explanation about how it stores these algae, and there should be. And look, it's a really short wiki, too. There's a really interesting animal with a super short wiki. So I think this guy is kind of hot off the presses. Diet of larvae is zooplankton, and then later they eat isopods and amphipods. Crickets. So it seems like they eat mostly meat. Both larvae and adults are primarily nocturnal, coming out at night to hunt food. That's actually kind of weird, too, because if they're nocturnal and they got this algae, what is the algae surviving on? Okay, so when they're eggs, the eggs are going to be there day and night, right? So the eggs are going to get... I don't know. It just, if they're primarily nocturnal, do they, bask in the sun while they're sleeping? Anyway, that whole thing is weird. But anyway, there were no salamander creatures with photosynthesis last I checked. Okay, but there is one more interesting thing, because you thought the salamanders were it, did you? All right, I'm going to pull that one up in a minute. The salamanders are not the star of this show, of this Mandela show anyway. Has anybody ever experienced seeing a wave with their eyes going by? Maybe. I think you're going to have to explain that a little bit more, Shari, because I'm not sure what you mean. I heard you talking about the leaf sheep quite some time ago. Okay, so here's the thing. I talked about that lettuce one, and then I talked about the leaf sheep, but I don't think I knew that it was photosynthetic. I just thought it was a cute animal at that time. I saw it. I mean, it's been around, what, like 4 months or something? I had a humor-oriented doctor, and after a while I realized he was evading my questions. Haha, interesting, interesting. Mega doses of vitamin C good for COVID prevention. You know, mega doses. You can't really take mega doses, mega doses, because your intestines will be like, nope. So you can take a lot, but then there's a certain point where your body's like, nope, we will not intake anymore. And then you'll get kind of the cramps, and then you'll know that you got to back off. Good old Western meds are good for a certain limited scope of maladies. In my experience, Western meds are good for stuff that, like traumatic injury. You cut your hand, you broke your bone, you need your bone set, you need your hand sewed up. You lost some skin, you need some new skin put on. If they can see something on an x-ray, then they could probably do something useful about it. But if they can't see it on an x-ray or at least an MRI, then in my experience, your chances of actually getting any really help from them are not that great. Possibly insulin, if diabetes, insulin-dependent diabetes, they can help with. I mean, a lot of this stuff, though, they just treat the symptoms. It's hard to explain. It's like a wave, and I could see that going through the room, like when you throw a rock in the water. I've seen weird things where stuff kind of moves weird. I've always had a little bit weird image processing. So if I see something weird, just like it looks like optical phenomena, I really just don't worry about it that much, because sometimes I see like extra colors, like I'm looking through a prism a little bit. Sometimes there'll be like, it's kind of hard to describe. There's always been funky things about my vision, though, so it's another one of those, huh? So I don't think I've experienced exactly what you said, though. I don't think so. Other weird stuff, yes. Antibiotics healing horrible wounds broke. Antibiotics, I don't know. I have mixed feelings on antibiotics. I'm not really sure how much they really do. I don't think I've ever taken any antibiotics and really felt like they really did anything. We've definitely had cases where we couldn't take them. Like they made us sick, so we just stopped. Like me and my mother, we just like, okay, I'm just getting really sick from these antibiotics. So I just stopped taking them, and it didn't matter. We had a cat once that we could just not get the antibiotics into the cat. He had surgery. We could not get the antibiotics into the cat, so we just went, well, we're just going to go by his immune system. He healed just fine. So I don't know on antibiotics. I don't know. The night my mom passed, I saw waves pass over my head. Could be. I think there's weird stuff out there, and our minds have to process it and somehow try to show us this concept. And so I think sometimes we may see the same thing in different ways, because it's basically not light waves, but more like concepts that we're trying to process. Maybe. I mean, if there's 3 people in the room and only you see it, and maybe the third person will see something, but it'll be different, that kind of thing. You both know something happened, but white flashes. I sometimes they used to say that the blue dot, I get this like cobalt blue dot. For years that was the thing, like, some kind of spiritual thing. You'd see this cobalt blue dot, like a light, for just like a second or two. I haven't heard much about that in quite some time. And then I stopped getting it for a few years, and now I kind of see like a little white spot there. There was really no explanation for any of that. And I get visual snow. I get trailers. Didn't even do any hallucinogens. For a while they were saying it was a side effect of hallucinogens. I'm like, well, I didn't take any of them. Now they're like, oh no, you can just get it and it doesn't have to be hallucinogens. Dang, am I the only one to lose the feed? Possibly. Haven't heard any other complaints. Try like restarting YouTube, like refreshing YouTube channel and start over. Sometimes that fixes it. Okay, so blah blah blah. All right, let's get to that thing I promised. All right, so this was interesting because now they're talking about basically humans, any mammals. So basically, let's see, what are they saying here? The ability to convert sunlight into biological energy in the form of ATP is thought to be limited to chlorophyll containing chloroplasts in photosynthetic organisms. Okay, that's the old school, that only chlorophyll could do it. Here we show that mammalian mitochondria can also capture light and synthesize ATP when mixed with a light-capturing metabolite of chlorophyll. All right, so it's like we've already got this inborn ability if we're given this metabolite. The same metabolite fed to the worm, Kynor habditus elegans, leads to increase in ATP synthesis upon light exposure, along with an increase in lifespan. All right, so they fed this worm this metabolite, and so he's just eating it, and then when he was put out in the light, his lifespan, or its lifespan, increased. We further demonstrate the same potential to convert light into existing energy exists in mammals as chlorophyll metabolites accumulate in mice, rats, swine when fed a chlorophyll-rich diet. Okay, so now they're saying that if you eat a chlorophyll-rich diet, like tons of greens, this metabolite that they fed to this worm that allowed them to somehow use light and synthesize ATP from it, if you eat a bunch of greens, these creatures, mice, rats, swine, blah, 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 all accumulated this metabolite. Let's see. Okay, so they're saying that the metabolite accumulates, and they think that it means that they also could do it, all these other creatures. Results suggest chlorophyll-type molecules modulate mitochondrial ATP by catalyzing the reduction of coenzyme Q, a slow step in mitochondrial ATP synthesis. We propose that through consumption of plant chlorophyll pigments, animals too are able to derive energy directly from sunlight. So this is kind of shocking, but basically they're saying if you eat a whole bunch of plant stuff, then you might be able to somewhat synthesize energy from light. They're saying that your cells already have the capability to do it if they have enough of this metabolite that you get by eating a bunch of plants. So it's like actually shocking. All right, and they've already checked a number of mammals as well as this worm thing, and found this to be so. So basically then that whole thing where you stand out in the sun and get energy from it, that of course everybody thought was ridiculous, like breatharians and stuff, is now got some scientific backing. And I mean, this is really, really, really interesting. And I'm not totally shocked in that we've been hearing the predictions from like a lot of the spiritualist signs, and a lot of the spiritualist people are saying that we will evolve to not need to eat food slowly and be able to live off light and have a light body and stuff. So this, I think, is the first volley in this. And it's interesting because I've been thinking about this for quite some time. You know, are we going to start turning green or what? You know, I don't know. But this is volley number 1 of that process. And this sudden stream of creatures, mammals, that can partially photosynthesize. And now we have it in all kinds of mammals. So very interesting. Very interesting. Is that if you are vegan, you don't have to be vegan. You only have to eat a lot of plants. So you can still eat your meat. The point is, if you eat and not just any old plants, it's got to be ones that have chlorophyll in it. So like if you eat a watermelon, it doesn't have any chlorophyll. But if you eat spinach, kaboom, there's some chlorophyll. It's got to be the green stuff. Bananas, no. Banana leaves, yes. That's the story anyway. So, I think it's just the first step, but... And I think this is going to continue to morph. This is just step 1 right now. It's a big step, though. It really is, because it's already this step that basically, if you eat a bunch of chlorophyll, then your body's natural metabolism of that chlorophyll, that metabolite, you don't have to inject it, it's just eating it, will allow your cells to derive some energy from light. So, I mean, we're like basically there. We're still getting the metabolite from the plants. All right, so for now, but I think that will continue to morph. This is just the first step in this game. I do think we've done a lot of shifting lately. I don't know about you, but it feels like we have. And suddenly there's all these chlorophyll animals, so I think it's really interesting. Neither mammal nor reptile nor any other type but plant could make use of sunlight. And it wasn't just any plant, it was a chlorophyll plant. Yes, that was like the absolute, that was like one of those markers between the realms, plant, photosynthesis, animal, no. It was always a dividing line, a big fat dividing line. I like the idea, though, being able to consume the rays of the sun. I am not shocked. I keep hearing it. I feel like food doesn't taste as good as it used to. A lot of people are saying the same. There's been a lot of talk of it, and then we got this whole breatharian thing. And what I've noticed is stuff that was absolutely, like, ridiculous 15 years ago is now all happening, like the changing of DNA. That was completely scoffed at. Spiritualists are like, oh, your DNA is changing. And the scientists are like, that's the stupidest thing they've ever heard in their life. Well, now they're up there saying it. Epigenetics, and we've seen our own bodies change. So that has to be DNA change in there somewhere. It makes sense they'd use chemtrails to try to cover up the sun. I guess there's multiple purposes of the chemtrails. And I have mixed feelings on the chemtrails, because it could be that we're getting these trails because the atmosphere's changed. I certainly didn't see any trails when I was a child, and even as a teen. Now they're there. But if you look at the old photos, they were back there. In this timeline, they were back when I was a child. But in my timeline, they weren't. So is it really chemicals or just the current atmosphere reacting differently to whatever the current chemicals they use in the planes, which probably keeps changing also? Um, could it also be maybe a Mandela explain away method for the change in the cloud layer? I tend to think that the cloud layer issue is a Mandela effect, personally. It really kicked in a couple years ago. There's all these different layers of the clouds. I don't think they can change and get these really high stratospheric clouds, didn't exist in my old timeline that they do now. I don't think just spraying crap is going to make cloud layers have, 9 different layers or whatever ridiculous number of layers it has now. So I don't think they can do it with that. So also, we've got this latest spiel. If you guys have been following the Tartarian mud floods at all, that storyline, there's been this storyline the last few months about why are all the old photos have like this weird white sky, and they're hiding something and blah 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 blah. But what I'm seeing is that our sky now is turning to be like that. It's getting more and more hazy, whitish. I've been talking about this for a while. Even before the Tartarian mud flood thing started talking about it, I was talking about the sky looking hazy. And I've heard other people talk about it also, like what's that white sheet over the sky? Why does the sky look? And used to be clouds were all at one level, but now you have this white high sheet of cloud, like it just looks white, and then there'll be other clouds under it, so there's white behind the white. I didn't used to have that in my old timeline. So I wonder if we're not heading towards some of that Tartarian stuff now, the sky changing to match those old images. So yeah, I'm wondering if the chemtrails may be a Mandela explaining kind of a deal. I think chemtrails are a lot easier for people to accept than, say, the Mandela effect. Because the idea that the government can't be trusted and is spraying crap is not as weird as reality magically changing via magic fairy dust. So that's a lot of people are on board with the chemtrail thing. There's, a lot of people are seeing changes in the atmosphere. I also, before I knew of the Mandela effect, was seeing changes and thought that it might be due to chemtrails. But now that I know about the Mandela, I think that's the more likely explanation for me. Last week we talked about the oxygen percentage changing. Did you know pressurized nitrogen is a narcotic? Woohoo! Which means at lower elevations we can get numbed down by the air itself. Woohoo! I feel like I'm on a narcotic this last couple months or a couple years, so maybe that's it. I think Mandela Affected Channel was the first to talk about how a lot of people don't remember nearly as much nitrogen in the air as there is now, not by a long shot. I actually remember them saying that Mars had 30% nitrogen and that would be poisonous to us, and that was our number one reason why we wouldn't be able to convert Martian atmosphere to be breathable, because of all that pesky nitrogen. But now 30% is like nothing, so problem solved by the Mandela effect or whatever. The sky over here is always white as if it's a veil. Yeah, see, it's getting to look like those Tartarian mud flood conspiracy photos. I've seen chem since I was 4 to 5 years old. I don't know, how old are you though? Because I'm like 50. So if you got to be at least 50, well, or near that. Remembering the future, we are becoming the Tartarian. Yeah, maybe the new story is we're going to cycle back around. I don't think there was Tartarians in my old timeline. There wasn't even a empire called Tartaria back then. It was just a little tiny segment of Russia. It wasn't like this huge thing. The Tartars, that was it. Clouds are presenting differently. Absolutely, they are very different. They used to all be on one level. Now they'll be like all spread out, like towering blobs. They come really low. A lot of them hang way lower. You can see them at night now. Didn't used to be able to see them. They used to just be black, like dark. Now they like kind of glow. Okay, so yep, looks like we're on our way to light harvesting. All right, another kind of laugh and a half is Moby Dick. That book. I don't know if you've ever read it. I tried. It was not my cup of tea. It was one of the few books where I just read a few chapters and went, nah. And it wasn't for school, so luckily I wasn't forced. But based on a true story. Of course it is. Everything's based on a true story in this timeline. So apparently there really was a giant albino whale that crushed a bunch of ships. So the storyline jumps around because in some of the stories, this whale would just ram ships because he didn't like us. In other stories, it was because they were trying to harpoon the whale. I mean, I would imagine that in both stories, he developed his dislike of humans from initial attempts at harpooning. But in some stories, it was only the harpooning that caused him to flail around and sink ships. In other stories, he would just see the ships and sink their little butts. So he was named Mocha Dick, apparently after some island named Mocha. We didn't have albino whales in my old timeline, but in this timeline we do, so. Let's see if I find this. So yeah, Mocha Dick was an albino killer sperm whale. I think that this is what we want. Let me see if Smithsonian Mag will let me look at it without a subscription. That would be the word. All right, so there was really a dude then that apparently had this bad luck with this whale. And there was this boat, Essex, was indeed sunk by a whale. That's only the beginning. No. No. Melville met local dignitaries, blah, blah, blah. On his last day, he met the broken down 6-year-old man who had captained the Essex, the ship that had been attacked and sunk by a sperm whale in the 1820 incident that had inspired Melville's novel. Captain George Pollard Jr. was just 29 when the Essex went down. He survived and returned to Nantucket to captain a second whaling ship. But when that ship wrecked on a coral reef, the captain was marked as unlucky, and no owner would trust his ship to him again. Alright, so there's basically this whole story about this Mocha Dick sank the Essex. This guy was broken, blah, blah. I didn't read the whole book, so I'm not sure exactly how close this correlates. But yeah, it's actually really close to a true life story now. I mean, there's even these accounts of the whale just seeing ships and ramming it. I've never heard of such a thing as whale just ramming a ship for like no good reason. I mean, even if it was mistreated by humans before, in my old timeline, they didn't just go, that ship, I'm going to sink it. I mean, not that they aren't big enough, obviously, but that just didn't used to happen. Tartaria is an enemy like Mongolia. Yep. I mean, Mongolia at least existed for me, but it was just a territory within China that they had taken over quite some time ago. So that's another example of places becoming more independent. Here, Mongolia has its independence. It's its own country. Types of lightning. Yeah, so many and so weird. Oh, nitrogen is used to cool the engine now. Yeah, nitrogen was an explosive, and I think it still is. And there's this whole complicated story um, about um, how it could be both, or last time I looked and it was all confusing. A fish killed a guy on land here in Australia, jumped out of the water and took him out. Also, a shark took a child. Off a boat. See, that's different. I guess if you're hanging way out the side, but yeah, fish are getting a little more aggressive, I think. And they've got teeth. So many of them have teeth. It used to just be a few, like sharks. Mongolia always was its own country in my timeline. Really? Futuristic? Well, I guess you did come from the future then. That's a really popular Mandela for a lot of people. Oh yeah, the super chat still doesn't work. I forgot to check that. Sorry guys. I guess you're forced to keep your money. I know it's hard. Part of my problem is I think about this stuff now, and then when I'm done, I go to sleep, and then I don't think about it until like next week. I'm really segmented that way. If I don't write a note, then once I leave an area, I'm done with that area. Like when I leave work, I have to write a note for everything I have to do, because once I leave work, I'm not thinking about work until I get back to work. Okay, just another little aside. I've noticed the last like 2 weeks, all my local lizards, the little normal lizards, I've talked before about how they're becoming iridescent on their undersides that they never were before. But they've actually just really run fast the last couple weeks. Like, they run so fast now that I can't tell that they're lizards. I used to be like, oh, there's a lizard running. But now something runs so fast that I'm like, what is that? And only if they stop can I be sure it's a lizard. It's like they're like double timing it. They never could run that fast. They still run and then kind of stop, luckily, because that's the only way I can tell what they are. They're so quick now. You could start a Patreon, Eva. There is a Patreon. If you go to the home page of my channel, on the top right, which is there for you guys, there is a little link where you could do it if you wanted to. People like the super chats, though. Yeah, there's a Patreon and a PayPal option, that is. The air in Earth's atmosphere is made up of approximately 78% nitrogen. Yeah, see, no, it was like mostly oxygen, and then it was carbon dioxide, and nitrogen was tiny, and 30% was considered too much and would poison us to death. At somewhere, maybe about 10 years ago, I remember reading about that. Unfortunately, I didn't really track it like through. I've jumped through a lot of timelines, so I think it's been shifting. But at some point, I was in a timeline where 30% nitrogen in Martian air was too much and could poison us. And that means that our air had to, I think it was like around 10 or 15% back then. And that is a huge difference. I know about the Schwebebon and Wuppertal for a very long. Apparently, it's now older than I knew. I do not know what in the heck that is. I will see if I can, like, unfortunately, I don't think I can copy paste it, because there's a bunch of letters in there. All right, let me just try that. Let's see if it copy pasted. It did. The Schwebebon and Wuppertal. It sounds like you made that up, but apparently you didn't. There's a suspension railway in the Wuppertal, Germany. I don't know if I would know. I've not seen this upside down thing before. I can't 100% swear that I would have known about this upside down suspension railway. Huh. Okay. Sure, why not? Yeah, KDB, I agree. Mongolia was part of China. Very popular Mandela Effect for many. It's for before my birth. It was part of China. I think it was like in the 40s or 50s. They'd had it for quite some time. It had once been its own country, but it was a ways back. All right, so lizards. Okay, so the Mach 5 lizards have been covered. All right, this one is from username Fiverrah on Redcon, spelled Fiverrah. Notice something's up with the CERN logo. Can't say I'm shocked this one's changing. Alright, so, ooh, looks like did somebody already highlight it? Doink. Alright, it looks like somebody highlighted it there, but basically, when did it get these 2 loops? I'm not sure, but I remember like 1 loop with all these lines shooting off it, but now there's like 2 loops. It was 1 circle with lines going hither and yon. I think there's 1 extra line in here somewhere too. So we got another circle, and one of them is broken. So it used to be CERN, the circle, and some line shooting off. Now we've got this offset CERN with another circle. So, yeah. Something's up with CERN logo, guys. So I probably shouldn't have put that colored one up because that's not actually what we got. We got that now. I don't remember this being offset like that. The more complicated ones are harder to tell when they change, but something's fishy. Okay. Where am I at? Am I on here yet? No. I haven't made that good of progress, have I? Okay, and then this one's from Mark Tyus. Commenter on the channel, MarkTyus. This one's been around for a couple years, but I just noticed it's looking weirder and weirder. And he brought this one up as an Emmy. I agree. It's not a new Emmy for me, but it's an extra funky looking lately. It's that Megamouth shark. And lately there's a lot of images. I mean, it looks fake. It looks like some kid did a bad job trying to draw a shark. So there's one image of it. The mouth is completely ridiculous. Was it the fins are all weird on the side, or what's going on with this thing? There's another. It looks like a giant tadpole. There's that one image. So I've seen the images of its mouth open, but when it first came, it didn't have this big pouchy mouth, and it didn't have that nose as much. So this thing keeps changing. It's getting more tadpole-like the world's largest tadpole. I mean, really, dudes? So keep an eye on this thing, because this has really been morphing a bunch lately. It looks like it's fake, I swear. It just... It's like some kid was bad at drawing, and they came up with this thing. So yeah, see the snout here now, it didn't have this, like, it almost has like a goofy clown nose knob thing coming out now. Kind of like some of the other sharks have also been growing this, but this one only recently. You can see it better here. It wasn't all like that. The mouth didn't open as much, and then the cavern went kind of further back into the body before, instead of having this clown nose. So if you saw this like a year ago, just look. Also, there's more of this kind of an angular pattern to the mouth. It used to be that the rib patterns in here were more just straight, regular curve instead of kind of a bend like you have now. I also don't remember this big center structure here of the ribs. So this guy has morphed kind of sudden-like in the last month or two, I think. See it from the front view. It just looks totally stupid looking. and ridiculous. Yeah, so Megamouth and shark. Okay, so now I have a question for you. This one might be a little esoteric, but Dark City, that movie that was sort of the precursor to the Matrix, concept is often bandied about in the Mandela Effect community, so hopefully a fair number of you have seen it. There's kind of a iconic part of it where he remembers this place called Shell Beach, and he tries to find it because there's something suspicious about his memory. So he wants to go back to Shell Beach, and he works really hard to get back there. And when he gets to where he's supposed to, on his way to Shell Beach, he encounters this giant like billboard of Shell Beach, and it appears that that is the only actual true existence of Shell Beach, and that all his memories of Shell Beach are like fake or something, because Shell Beach doesn't exist, only this giant billboard exists. Okay, so I remember the billboard saying a certain thing, and now the billboard says something else. So I don't know if anybody here remembers well enough, but do you remember the billboard saying greetings from Shell Beach? Or do you remember the billboard saying welcome to Shell Beach? Which one is it for you guys? Greetings from Shell Beach or welcome to Shell Beach? All right, I'm going to go on to the next one. Hopefully I won't forget to come back. I'm also going to read some of your stuff. Anyone else heard about regrowing limbs and teeth lately? Well, that teeth thing, I covered it a while ago. I haven't checked it lately, though. The teeth can kind of grow out. Ribs can grow out. That's kind of an older one. Partial finger regeneration, now possible. That's kind of an older one. I'm not sure if it's... Let me know if it's morphed past that. Megamouth shark. Yeah, Megamouth shark's been around for a couple years, but it keeps changing. And it is an ME, but it's like kind of an older ME for me, definitely. Been like 3-4 years maybe. Having the planet and the moon accessible by normal airplane instead of spaceship. Ah, yeah, that'd be kind of fun, wouldn't it? I heard that the moon has an atmosphere now, and it's called exosphere. Well, you know, they've been saying for a while now that it has a very tiny bit of atmosphere. And then they said it's got some ice, and then so it's growing. It's growing water and an atmosphere, bit by bit. Way back they used to say it didn't have an atmosphere, that it just had a little bitty atmosphere, a little bigger atmosphere. That's how the Mandelas grow. They only get it, and then they let it a little more and a little more. Seen a lot of talk about the poles having holes, which leads to access to the inner worlds lately. Yeah, I don't know. That one's gonna tough one, because then you can't have both. I don't think you can have flat Earth plus holes and poles. So, well, let's see which one we end up with, if any of those. Because the flat Earth is that it's flat, and then there's these ice walls. So there's no real poles. There's just ice walls, and then beyond the ice walls, supposedly there's like more like ocean and more land and stuff. Well, actually, who the heck knows? But there's some old map that seems to show more land and more ocean out there. Is there an end to it? Does the plane go on forever, flat? If there's like a dome, then what's past the dome? Beats me. I don't know. Drastic CERN logo change. They sort of doubled the logo. Yeah, interesting. Does it have any iconic significance that we know of for sure? It's hard to say. I mean, I imagine it probably does, but okay. So for Intrepid, it changed last year. Oh, I see. So you're kind of saying double CERN circles, double holes at the poles. Beats me. I don't know. Then you've got the voting polls. I don't know. This is free association, I guess. The CERN was always 666. Yeah, it's still 666, but it's different now because it used to be the 666 came off with like 3 different lines coming off of one circle, but now it's more like 6666666. Maybe we'll get another circle and then it really will be 666. Why do we need spacesuits to go to the moon if the Earth's atmosphere reaches the moon? Well, they're saying that the atmosphere is way thin out there, like just barely any. But yeah, I would not at all be surprised if that changes and slowly upgrades. Vanessa Vaugh's off to bed. Have a good sleep. All right, so one person remembers had 3 circles. General Sorrow remembers 3 circles. Someone else remembers 2 circles from a year ago. Someone else is not sure. Overlaid circles. The famous mystery signal called WOW in this timeline came from the Sagittarius arm, which is where we remember once being, but I can't recall where the WOW signal came from Earth. Yeah, I don't remember. My old WOW signal was actually, in my timeline, deemed to be the sound of the Big Bang, like the residual leftover resonance of the Big Bang. So it was determined to be, it was proclaimed to be a false alarm. Oops, it turns out it's just this. So it was like from everywhere. So I don't think it had a location because the Big Bang sound is everywhere. And that's why they wouldn't. So they heard this weird sound and they're like, oh, there's this weird, strangely controlled sounding sound. But then they're like, oh, nah. So here it was always a big mystery, and it's much more interesting in this timeline. Signal was from Orion arm in my timeline. Okay. So, Shari, in your timeline, was it resolved or was it still a big mystery, possibly alien or whatever? It's called WOW because that's what the scientists wrote on a sheet of paper. Yeah. For my timeline, they wrote WOW. This is interesting, you know, WOW. And then later, they go, oh, sorry, guys, false alarm. So apparently they wrote WOW in every timeline, but then why they wrote it and how it shook out was different. So for me, yeah, it was turned out to be kind of a nothing burger. Not resolved in my time. Okay, so I come from the boring timeline, big surprise there, where nothing exciting happens. Okay, so where are we? All right, so nobody remembers. Okay. Anyway, just to tell you, it's I'll write it, but Shell Beach, Dark City. I always would say welcome to Shell Beach. It was always welcome to Shell Beach. It was kind of the joke. It was my Mandela joke. Welcome to Shell Beach. But here it's greetings from Shell Beach. Instead of welcome, it's greetings. Greetings from Shell Beach. I don't think you can quite see it, but anyway, just weird. Alright. This one's another one for me. When I went to UCLA, they have underground tunnels that's called the steam tunnels. And some things that bored college kids would do would be that they would sneak into the underground steam tunnels late at night and like sneak around and then leave. I mean, it's not the most exciting thing, but they were exciting because they were just, it was creepy and everything was really old under there. And there's one part that was really hot and you had to crawl under all these pipes. And then there was another part that used to be like there was an old bridge and then there was a giant cavern under the bridge and they had just paved over all of that stuff and the old bridge was still under there. It was like they just put like cement over the top of everything and you just could go underneath. So it was cool. I mean, it was this cool labyrinth. It wasn't super scary for me because there was all these exits that would exit out into the inside of buildings above us. So like you'd go out into the engineering building or the psychology building and it'd be all these weird, strange places. Like you'd call up this one ladder and we just opened the door and we were in this side of the men's bathroom in one of the main buildings. Like this is one reason it's good to go at night, because then when you pop into the men's bathroom from the wall, there's nobody in there. Another entrance was under like another bridge that they had built on top of the first bridge. There's another entrance, like there was entrances all over, and so hence exits all over. But when I lived there and the internet was created, and for many years after, I would look to see where else there were any underground tunnels, because I went a number of times at UCLA. I loved it. And I wanted to know if there was any others. And the only ones I could find were USC. The USC had some. It was a bad neighborhood. I didn't have a car, so I didn't end up going. But I was super fascinated with underground tunnels. There were only those two, USC and UCLA. But now there has always been, and I have been looking for this even like 2 years ago, 3 years ago, when I learned of the Mandela, I started looking for underground tunnels. When I started seeing all those pyramids and buried things coming. There were none in San Diego, and there were none in Los Angeles other than some underneath colleges. Like there's a couple here under colleges also. But now there's 2 different sets of old underground tunnels under Los Angeles. So that is pretty cool. The one thing that bugs me is these things showed up, okay? And then right when they showed up, just happens to be right when you can't get into them anymore. So I think this is another Mandela scam that you used to be able to go into these, but now we've closed them up for safety purposes. I'm like, no, they just started existing right now. So, I mean, are they even under there? Are they only existing on the internet? Nobody knows because you can't get in there. In my perspective, you never could. But in this perspective, right when they show up, you suddenly can't. Very, very suspicious. And that's the case with both of these sets of tunnels. I mean, not necessarily right now, but by the time they show, you can't get in them anymore. That's what I'm seeing. All right, I'm going to show you. Red car, subway, terminal. All right, so here's one set of them. So here's another thing, okay? They always talked about when they were putting in the current subway system in LA as LA needs a subway, LA's first subway. LA has lived too long without a subway. Well, in the current timeline, LA had a subway before the current subway, and it was called the old red car subway. And you get into it by going through this freaking hotel. This is what it looks like underneath. So there used to be subway cars going through here, and this goes under Los Angeles part of the way. One thing that really struck me is it's very Tartarian looking. If you study the Tartarian stuff, the detail on here, this looks a little more modern right here, but all this old detail. This is the front of the hotel. So you go in here, and it's called the subway terminal building, I think now. Look at here how they do the subway, and it's got the V. And you can't tell if this is a lambda or an A because you can't quite tell if there's a line there or not. I've seen a lot of this U's having V's. So this is so in order to get into the subway, you have to go through this hotel, and it's all hidden in all this hotel. And supposedly this hotel was even like shuttered and not used for years. And now there's an old Huell Hauser episode featuring this that, of course, I've never seen before until just now. So this hotel was originally like the subway terminal building, which was designed as offices for the subway. And this building is like huge. This is the underground here. This doesn't look so Tartarian. But then here, this is like the waiting room. Now, weirdly, this area right here was supposed to be all this beautiful colonnades, and after the subway was shut down, they used it for offices and tore off all the beautiful colonnades and supposedly put a drop ceiling in here and ripped out everything, which I find highly suspicious. I mean, you have this beautiful pattern, beautiful ceiling, and they poked all these holes in it and put a drop ceiling of boring white ceiling tiles, and then they removed all the pretty colonnade. So I'm just wondering, I'm like, basically they're saying this was always a super boring place for years and years, but above it always was hidden this beautiful Tartarian style structure. So that's an excuse for not knowing about it, because they hid it under a white, ugly ceiling tile drop ceiling. Who would make such a decision if you had this beautiful high ceilings to put in the effort of ripping it out and making it boring office cubicles? Wouldn't you just paint the nice ceiling that already exists and have a beautiful... I mean, I'm sure there's somebody dumb enough to do this, but can't be that many of them. All right, so this is the above area, and then they would go down into this. So supposedly there was tracks here, and then like the electric trolley cars would run along here. Okay, I already showed you that's the front of the building. There's another view of the underground, and here was supposed to be some kind of like control station. I really should try to find that building. So, when was this even run, actually? All right, so it was 1926. That's right around the Tartarian time frame again, where a lot of stuff was torn down. I think I wrote when it was put in, didn't I? Or maybe I didn't. I don't think I did. Nope. Was not that organized. So... Subway Terminal Building, Los Angeles. So, supposedly these tunnels this particular set of tunnels only went like 1.5 miles right now, and the rest was above ground. Okay, so it's 1.5 miles. But they built this monstrous subway terminal building. So in order to get to the subway, you go in here, and now you have to go walking around in here and here and here. It seems very weirdly laid out. You would think then the waiting room would be like right there. Like I don't know if they're arguing that they closed up a bunch of... I don't know. The whole thing is weird. And you've got 4 layers of really tall buildings here that supposedly were just for offices. And they would rent these offices out to businesses. All of that for 1.5 miles underground track of subway that doesn't have an ordinary entrance, and it doesn't have ordinary doors. I mean, the whole thing is just strange, and I'm quite confident this did not exist in my old timeline. This is the exact kind of stuff I used to hunt for all the freaking time. Let's see. I think they said it started running in 1925. Then it only ran a short while. Then there's this whole story. This is another weird thing. Okay, there's this whole story. Why did they stop using it after only a short period of time? So, one story is that cars took over, but then the story is that this subway was put in because of the traffic congestion. So, the whole point of the subway was to go underneath all the traffic so that you could get to your destination quickly. So, it doesn't really make sense that cars took over. But then another story is that somebody who worked for the automotive industry took over the control of the subway and ran it out of business via bad decisions, and so that the cars, like the automobile companies, could have more power. So then there's this whole conspiracy theory thing. Okay, hopefully that's not what's going to happen to the United States Post Office, now currently being run by a lackey appointed by the current administration, who just happens to have a lot of money invested in all the competitors of USPS. Now, that's just a giant coincidence, and is now totally revamping the USPS in ways that many feel will damage it permanently, but conspiracy is part of the current timeline. Okay, so this is the same kind of story back here for this ancient subway, Tartarian style subway that nobody ever heard of, especially not me. If you look at these giant tubes, you know, they could have been made for anything. They're saying it was a subway, but they said they pulled up the tracks, which I find is interesting. There's only a couple photos that are very hard to see, very kind of blurry, crappy photos that show any trolleys in here. This is an interesting one because it shows that nice, see here, the colonnades were much nicer back then. The ceiling was all intact. So supposedly this shows people waiting for the subway. It's kind of weird though, because it looks more like dining room or something to me, with the tables there. So I don't know, I'm kind of confused by that whole thing, frankly. Circa 1940s. I'm not sure what that one is. So yeah, who's to say? Oh, the layout here is kind of weird too, because they come in, the trains would come in and they have to go around, and I don't know. The whole layout of this thing is sort of strange. So, I mean, I think an argument could be made that maybe this was a pre-existing Tartarian facility that was revamped for the subway, or not. I don't know. There's just enough here to make me. I really feel this is a total Mandela for me. Whoops! I just saw that. Where'd it go? There. You can see this kind of very nice old Tartarian style building, though. This is the entry. Does that look like the entry to a subway to you? I don't know. The whole thing is just weird. Okay, so then what's the other underground one? So, like, underground tunnels are showing up, like, everywhere in the country right now. So I'm not really surprised to see this. And this is one of the reasons I've kept looking every, like, year or half a year, looking in San Diego. There's a little bit of tunnel in San Diego that showed up a couple of years ago, but that's it. Nothing really exciting in San Diego yet. All right, this one is interesting here. Los Angeles, Lost Angels. Perhaps not a total coincidence, the name. The Angels or the Lost Angels. Okay, so there's another underground tunnel system, supposedly connecting a lot of the downtown buildings. And it was supposedly used during the Prohibition era to shuttle illegal alcohol. I haven't been able to really find any information on why these were constructed. They didn't construct them for shuttling illegal alcohol, obviously. They connect supposedly a lot of the government buildings, but why were they put in to start with? When were they put in? I was not able to find any info. This is another one. I swear this is a Mandela. Just out of. So you see a lot of old articles that talk about how you can go down here using this and that elevator entrance. But then conveniently for the Mandela, the last couple years, suddenly they put sheriffs down there, and you can't go down there unless you're authorized, and you have to be a government worker, and you'll get arrested if they catch you and you're not a government worker and all that. So definitely enough to kind of deter people from going down there. So one of the other parts of the storyline is that there's all these blocked off locations that they said were deemed to be not earthquake safe. So there's been a bunch of earthquakes and none of them have come down, but there you'll find photos of blocked off areas, and who knows where they go. This is actually a different old legend that may not come true, but right now is not true. So there's this whole system of, I can't find out when they were built or for what reason, and we don't know the extent of them, and there's no map. And right around the time they showed up, you're not allowed to go under there anymore unless you're a government worker. So they're saying that they use these to shuttle around government files and stuff. See if I can find some more pictures of these. When I was setting up for the show, I thought they were boring and I didn't want to put the... So those are not it. These are one. That's some of the tunnels. Oh, another thing that I'm very suspicious of, apparently there's oil derricks hidden and made to look like buildings all around Los Angeles. That's really new for me. Okay. This one is another one. So there's like photos where they have your like government files just sitting out here on these halls, and I think that one I already covered. Ooh, there's a new photo. I think that's the other one, but I did not see that photo last time I checked. Pretty sure that one's one. Yep. So yeah, who knows how far these things go. Oh, there's a third set, and they're the set that Elon Musk is supposedly building underground for that fast car system thingy. Supposed to be building these all under Los Angeles. Come to think of it, that's a little suspicious. We've got now 3 sets of tunnels under Los Angeles. 2 of them old, 1 of them new. Oh, I have not seen this. So some of this is supposedly blocked off. I don't know. I really would love to get into these tunnels, but I don't really want to get arrested. I did find the route in. Oh, this is one that I thought was really weird. This one is in those tunnels. What is this thing? Okay. Now this looks like it's some kind of water tunnel thing. So why were these tunnels originally put in? Were they some kind of water system? Because I can't, if they were built to be tunnels for walking, I can't imagine why this thing would be in here. Unless you guys can think of it, because I just don't get what this is. So I kind of wondered if it was maybe an ancient water system. Oh, this is interesting. I wonder what this one... I'm going to have to check that out later. This is a rabbit hole I could go down forever. This is not Los Angeles, I don't think. But, yeah, I don't know. So I don't know what the story is on these tunnels or how it's going to shake out, but those weren't there before. I'm really quite sure. And I'm really, even like 2 years ago, I was hunting for these. And if you look at these articles, they're all from like 10 years ago, 8 years ago, and 2 years ago, hunting for these articles, hunting for underground tunnel systems. I couldn't find anything on it. Do notice Tartary also has atmospheric electricity and electric trams. This might be how we get rid of all the traffic. That's a storyline that's just popped up for me very recently. This concept that somehow they were able to harvest energy from the atmosphere. You know, the atmosphere, the light, everything is different here. So it may well be that this is very doable here. I don't think it was in my old timeline. But the story is developing rapidly. Basically, you know, we have our dreams, what we want, and then it's like the earth is morphing to make them possible. I used to think that we would have to develop technology that would work in the existing earth, but now what I'm seeing is the existing earth morphs to make the technology that we want be possible. So it's kind of totally opposite, just like everything around here. Opposite the storyline. The reality seems to be opposite the storyline that you hear on TV. Lots of Tartarian buildings don't have photos when they were built, but have photos before they were excavating or when they were finished without a roof, with some pieces missing. Yeah, I did find some construction. I was looking at Balboa Park and I saw some photos of construction. You do have to wonder how easily those would be faked, though. Yeah, there's been a lot of evidence showing up of old photos being faked. And they're having the tech to fake old photos. So even if you do see a construction photo, granted there are not many, most of the photos I do see are either them like moving around dirt, which totally fits the Tartarian theme, or just having a scaffolding all over the building. So if they were, say, cleaning the building off of existing dirt and whitewashing it and cleaning it down, and fixing up some damage to the exterior, you would still have all the scaffolding. Just because there's scaffolding up doesn't mean you built it. Or maybe you're just fixing up some of the facade. But there are, for Balboa, images of just being like sticks and stuff there. So, you know, then you have to ask, okay, was it a faked image or did they really build it? I don't know. And maybe, you know, it's different timelines, how it'll shake out. I really don't know. The thing with Tartarian subways seems to be that they were used to quickly evacuate the city when they were under attack, for the citizens to flee to nearby cities instead of dying there. Well, you know, that giant tube thing, it really doesn't support that theory, so I don't know. At least for that one particular location under Los Angeles. Tartarian style. First time you heard about Tartarian style. Okay, Tartarian. So basically, that kind of Roman colonnades type buildings that you see all over the world are Tartarian style. So think about all the Capitol buildings all over the world, the state Capitol buildings. 977 best Tartarian. What is it? Tartarian? Tartarian. It seems like Tartarian is changing to Tatarian. Okay, so I actually don't think that those are at all good examples. But it's Pinterest. Pinterest, I don't like Pinterest. Go die, Pinterest. All right, let me try again. Pinterest is not... what I would call the best choice for that. Let's just try images. Okay, so like this one. Boink. A lot of the World's Fair stuff are suspected of being Tartarian-esque. Churches style, that kind. A lot of the old European stuff. The most popular is when it's that Roman colonnades, Neo-Roman, Neo-Greco, this kind of thing. You'll find these all over. I mean, we have them, Europe has them, Russia has them. Whether they count that as Europe or not changes by the timeline. Find some more. That kind of thing. Very ornate, oftentimes. I noticed that this timeline has much taller spires, taller, skinnier spires than my old timeline. Their ability to build these, or at least whatever gravity's doing here, or combination of both, yields much taller buildings here. Taller, skinnier. In the old ones. I mean, obviously we can do that now. Tartarian style here. They'll have very ornate interiors quite often. This dome business. Here's another one. Tartaria tours. Beautiful domes. Classic look here. Another one. This Greek style stuff for sure. So that is said to be the Tartarian style. I think it's, you know, not really shook out. For me, this whole Tartaria thing is so new. So I feel like it's still, you know, even month by month, new details are shaking out. So one of the things they've been saying lately is that the Tartarian old buildings all have like weird metallic, like antenna things with little weird balls and stuff at all the peaks. And in this timeline, they weren't like used to put flags on like my old timeline. They were just sort of like these weird decorative elements. But then the Tartarian theory is that they were used to like harvest energy. See, like here's a good example. I don't know if you can really see that. Let me see if I can get a bigger image of this. Boink. All right, so these things. So these are all, I can't know for sure, but I'm assuming that these are like the others are like these ornate metal rods with balls on them in weird shapes. So the theory is that, and you'll find them on all the peaks in these old buildings now. I don't remember the old buildings being like that in my old timeline. I remember those being like flagpole things. But now the way they're designed, they're obviously not, because you couldn't run a flag up and down with all those balls in the way. So they're just, of course, the official canon of the official mainstream storyline is they're decorative, but the Tartarian theory is that they're some kind of energy harvesting device. I think that here's one too. No, I hate those tiny photos. Okay, so you get the picture. All right, so there's little spiky things on here. See there and there. That's totally a Tartarian style anyway. I mean, I guess I'm already talking like I believe in it. I don't know what I believe. Weird pointy things. All of these have it. Things are certainly changed to match the Tartarian theory. And I've seen I mean, if we're going to be able to be photosynthetic humans, and DNA can change, and South America can move. I don't really think it's that big of a stretch to think that Tartaria might be real at this point. I think this is newer here, this thing. Okay, so where was I? I don't even know. Subways. Okay. Okay, a new kind of weird dolphin. I probably should have. I think I originally had something that I was gonna specifically look for, but I should be able to find a YouTube. So these weird dolphins, they do this weird thing where they don't just jump out of the water, they go blub, 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 and then jump back in. So they spin like... I'll run a quick clip here.
These spinner dolphins can eat.
Let me see if I can find where they jump out. Alright, I just want to see the part where they jump. Alright, let's see if we can get one.
To film.
So they all do that. They all go woo. They all spin. Wow, just checking this one out. Look at how this whale jumps out.
On August 20.
I'm just looking at the thumbnail. They have a whale all the way out. I don't know if that's real or not. I probably should not dare to click on it. Alright. Anyway, that's something I've talked about before. These things are jumping more and more out of the water. I do not remember spinner dolphin. There's two kinds of them. Long-snouted and short-snouted. First described in 1828. So these are not a new thing. And they're like in waters everywhere. So they're not rare at all. Okay. Now, I have another question for you. Do you guys remember the eBay Mandela Effect? What do you remember the eBay Mandela Effect was? Because don't look at eBay right now, though. Just out of your head. No clicking on eBay. No Googling it. Just out of your head. What do you remember it was? Because I think it's changed for myself. I'm just curious if everybody else remembers the current timeline or the old eBay Mandela Effect that I remember. Castor, I just finished my motorbike build over the lockdown. Yeah, you know, all the fabrication places are like 6 months behind on their custom car parts. I can't get anything done for 6 months because everybody and their uncle, I guess, is working on their car or their truck or their old project and having these fab clinics. Because you know, I got that truck, and in order to take it off-roading, you should have a place on both the front and the back that you can hook a tow rope in case you get stuck and get towed out. A lot of people don't realize it, but even though you see hooks on the front of your vehicle, it's not safe to really yank on those because they're not attached to the right place on the frame, and you could really screw up your alignment, and you could like warp your car if you yank on those. So they call those, if you can actually really tow by it, those little tiny spots that are on most cars these days are just strong enough to allow you to maybe tow it gently up a ramp onto a tow truck, but that's it. You couldn't be like yanking on them and stuff. So in the old days when I was a kid, they would make those things so you could just tow the vehicle, serious towing, but now they're totally wimp-tastic. And even though I bought a four-wheel drive off-road vehicle, they don't really have a decent front tow region on them, and so I need to get something made. So all the places that have a design for those, they make it on demand, so you pay first and then they make it, and that's the problem. Nobody has any stock of these, so I want to get them put on there, and I can't do it because it's a 6-month backlog. You're not really supposed to go off-road if you don't have recovery points. I do have them in the back because somebody put a custom bumper on them. On the custom bumper has points, but... Okay, so what do you guys remember about eBay? Do you guys remember the eBay Mandela Effect? Believers have no concrete doc, so it's all speculation. Though, yeah, the Tartari we don't have. You know, there's a lot of weird stuff, though. I don't think it was in my old timeline. There's a lot of suspicious stuff. So it's a fun rabbit hole, and I don't have a pony in that race. And it may be that both the mainstream... I would not be surprised if current mainstream is going to get debunked. I think we're having a whole new timeline, and the whole old past is going to be debunked, and there's going to be a whole new past. Whether it'll actually come out much or a lot like this Tartarian theory or not, I don't know. That it could be that it won't be so much like that, or there will be multiple competing theories with evidence for all of them. I'm not sure how it'll shake out. So I'm just kind of watching it to see what, like, kind of shows up in the timeline at this point. Apparently, the Tartarian churches had some spheres with glowing fluid, which is said to have healed people with atmospheric electricity and sound from massive organs. Yeah, I've been hearing about the organs. Very interesting, because the one area around here that I think has Tartarian-style buildings just happens to have the world's largest outdoor organ. So, donated in, like, right around the 1920s or something, right around when lots of the Tartarian buildings were supposedly built / discovered. So, I'm just laughing about the whole thing. I don't know. Okay, there was an eBay Mandela Effect. You guys remember it, though? The eBay Mandela Effect that they were talking about, like, what was capitalized in eBay and stuff. Do you guys not remember that Mandela Effect at all? Maybe you don't remember it. It sounds like you guys don't remember it. It wasn't the most popular Mandela Effect, but there was definitely an eBay Mandela Effect. Oh, okay. eBay lost the capital B in the logo, KDB. That is the current version. I'm just wondering if anybody remembers the old version of my old timeline. It's not looking good at this point. Out of Australia theory is replacing out of Africa theory via DNA genetic mutations. Yeah. You know, the old Australia was out in the middle of nowhere. The current one is, you know, a hop, skip, and a jump from Papua New Guinea, so they totally could have come out of Australia. Doesn't surprise me. The underscore? Does eBay have an underscore? You know, it doesn't sound like anybody's from my timeline now on this. No one ever remembers the underscore in eBay. I think you're on your own on that timeline, dude. But I may well be on my own on my version that I'm going to cough up here in a second. I know Eva tried telling my Aussie mates. Yeah, I don't know. Everybody's under the strong delusion or something. I don't know. Okay, so nobody remembers my old eBay, obviously. So this is very new for me, like the last week. I buy a lot from eBay. I have a lot of my vendors I found on eBay. I'm always looking for some weird thing on eBay. I mean, I don't really spend a ton of money except for the store, but I'm often buying little putty-potty things. So I get a and I'm always getting notifications for eBay. Oh, you left this in your cart. You know, they're always trying to remind you to buy more crap. So I look at my you left this in your cart, and I see this lowercase e capital B, and I'm like, what? Since when? Okay. Because for me, it was All right, how did this go? For me, the Mandela effect was as follows. That originally it was a capital E, lowercase b, a, y. And then suddenly it became all lowercases. And people remembered the uppercase. So they're like, oh, what happened to the capital E? It never existed. That was the Mandela effect. Okay. But in this timeline, the Mandela effect was that, and this one's kind of weird. Let me make sure it's still that way. But, so now it, this is an older Mandela for this timeline, but it's not my end Mandela. eBay. So I look up the Mandela effect to see what it is here. And of course it matches the current reality better. So that this guy is going, eBay has never had a capital B. I always remember the logo being spelled E capital B A Y, even though when you type in eBay on Google, it autocorrects to E capital B A Y. However, you look at eBay logo history, their logo has never had a capital B. It always had a lowercase b. All right, now hopefully when I check this, because when I checked it a couple days ago, this thing he says here is wrong. I looked up Logopedia and it did have a capital B. So he's saying I look up Logopedia and it never had a capital B. It always had a lowercase b. And nobody calls him on it. And Mandela Effect is a subreddit that has a lot of skeptics. So if he slipped up on something huge like this, I think they would have been on him like jackals on raw meat. I really do. Instead, they're talking about case sensitive. Well, it doesn't make sense. Blah, blah, blah. Case sensitivity for URLs. This one, the logo has always been lowercase b, but the website has always been uppercase b. And then they're like, yeah, but that doesn't make sense because URLs are not case sensitive. Then I know for sure that the logo is eBay through most of the 2000s is. Okay, so all of that, and he doesn't get pounced down. And then I just trod over to Logopedia history for eBay, and it says that there was a capital B up to 1999. Okay, so he's saying, no, I looked at it, and there was never a capital B, and now I'm looking at it, and there was a capital B. But the whole thing puts my head in a tailspin, because for me, this wasn't even the Mandela. So now this guy talking about this Mandela in 3 years ago, this guy who's deleted his original username, now conflicts totally with this, which is probably one of the first times I've ever seen that, because usually this would be changed to match this. There wouldn't be this obvious split here. So is the Mandela getting sloppy? Or is it letting us see more of, seeing more weirdness? But this kind of marks a change for me, because to find this obvious discrepancy now between this 3 years ago Mandela. So everybody's talking about, oh, it's an electronic bay, and bay should be, for me it was the E that was capitalized, but I bet none of you noticed that in the old logo the Y is uppercase. I'm going to click on this. I actually don't remember this logo at all. Go back. Let me just see if that's, yeah. Huh. Okay. Yeah, I don't remember that logo at all, actually. The logo's always had a capital B. Looks weird now. Bunch of weird Mandela-splaining, but none of them is going hit. No, it did too have a big B. So I don't know. Oh, it was weird. And none of yous remember it, I see. None of yous remembers the capital E Mandela Effect for eBay. None of yous. That makes me kind of sad. Yeah, see, in this timeline, it was either capital B or lowercase b. In my timeline recently, it was either capital E or lowercase e. The B was never capitalized. Nobody remembered it being capitalized. It was not written as capitalized. The B had nothing to do with the Mandela effect for eBay. It was the E. That's why when this showed up a couple days ago, a note from eBay, as so often happens, and I saw that capital B, I'm like, what the F? So I immediately go to check to see if eBay has changed their logo again. And I'm like, no, it's always been that way. Sort of, but not. And then I check the Mandela effect, and the Mandela effect has always been about the B. It was about the E. That's why I'm mad. It was about the E. As a coder, I remember in the early 2Ks, it was capital key E, capital B, A-Y. Sorry, my voice is cracking. But that was before the ME, so I have seen it as a branding change. No, because in this timeline, it was never capital E, capital B, A-Y. According to Logopedia, anyway. That's your timeline special, I think. I have not heard that one at all. Okay, so you guys are all from the capital B world. I remember eBay being all red. Yeah. I don't remember all those colors until recently, that's for sure. Anybody remember Subway not having the arrows? Yes. And now it's all tippy. That's just the last year or so. It used to be straight. First it got the arrows, but it was straight, and now it's... Anyways, well, I beat that horse to death. I'm the only one who remembers that. Okay, should be the last one, I think. Is this the last one? Yes, this is the last one. We've all been shifted. I remember E, capital B. Oh my god, I'm the only one from the capital E timeline. You say the capital E, ME has disappeared. Yes, yes, yes. There is no more capital E, eBay, Mandela effect. Nobody remembers it having a, unless you do, and well, I do, obviously. Nobody remembers it having a capital E. It never did have a capital E. There's no research or Mandela effect statements anywhere I can find about a capital E. It's all the B in this timeline. And apparently with 99% of you guys. So Intrepid, there's 2 of us that remember the capital E. And maybe Velcro Defang. Oh yeah, I was going to cover that, Shari. How did that not get on my list? I must have lost my note for it. Thank you for bringing that up, Shari. And it's good timing because I want to put that one in. Okay. Ugh. The later it gets, the more I can't spell. Mikael. Angelos. David. Now, I know I talked about David before, but I don't remember it looking like this, and Shari brought this one up. So, a couple things. I do think I talked about this strap thing. I don't remember Michelangelo's David looking like it does now. Now, this angle here is about right, but now he's got this weird strap thing. Now, I do remember talking about the strap thing and not remembering it. This angle is really weird, too. I'm just gonna... Just because this timeline loves weird stuff. What does that look like back there? This is actually what this is back here is also another Mandela for me, but I'll bring it up. There's a few other things that I'm not going to mention, but I do not remember the strap thing looking like this blobby thing. this totally weird, creepy blob monster. It looks like a giant tadpole. If you look through the literature, there's some conspiracy theory that this might be a human body part, but officially it's like the strap from the David and Goliath story of the Bible. But yeah, what is that supposed to be? It does not look like a fabric strap, but okay. I think I've mentioned before that his face looks really troubled. I think it looks even more troubled now. He used to have this kind of nice look on his face. Now he looks kind of pissy or angry. You don't see it as much from all angles, but of course the body has changed to match the current body structure according to Mandela reality. The other thing that I don't remember, and I don't remember talking about it before, is there's now this like tree trunk junk down here. I don't know what the point of it is. I think it just takes away from the statue. So there's this like little bit of tree trunk now. I mean, I guess an argument could be that he like maybe the marble was weak there and they didn't want to cut it into just a leg, but in my old timeline there was no tree trunk bits down there, and I have not seen any explanation for why this bit of tree trunk is down there. I mean, I could only guess it would have to do with weakness of the marble, but so Shari was mentioning that somebody, was it Shari? I think you were the one that found it. I know it was on Retconned. So I've talked before about the weird cut pupils, and I do believe that I have talked about the cut pupils of this statue. Like, it's in my old timeline, the pupils, they wouldn't carve into them. They were natural. So they did have this weird blank zombie look because you would just see circles, like orbs in there. That was it. In this timeline, I've mentioned that on a lot of statues, they now are carved into to give an eye look. I do remember talking about that for this statue, but what's different now, and I am not going to swear I didn't see it, but they're heart-shaped for this statue. Now, it may be that I didn't look at it close enough to see the actual shape of the carve-outs. I know I did for some statues, but maybe I didn't for this one. But these are his eyes now. They're actually heart-shaped. The carve-outs are heart-shaped. And look at how angry he looks. This just wasn't like that in my old timeline. All the old stuff is getting crabby, pissy, and weird. But I mean, I don't have a problem with the heart-shaped ones, but I have not seen any carve-outs yet for the eyes that looked heart-shaped. That's a total new one for me. So yeah, Shari was talking about this on Retconned. Look at how angry. Yeah, it just wasn't like that. He just was fairly placid looking in my old timeline. So it wasn't me. I didn't make the observation, though. Shari. And I know I saw it on Retconned. It wasn't me. So I can't take credit for that one. I did notice the cutout pupils, but I don't remember them being heart-shaped. The old one. So I think that guy's continued to morph. Yeah, all that songs that are catchy, that's about right. Weakness of the marble, the statues are reinforced with steel. I've never heard that storyline before. I thought they're just cut out of marble. The storyline was that, the current storyline, this is also new for me, was that it was carved on by two other artists. They both abandoned their project before Michelangelo got it and carved on it. Now, my old timeline was that it was an inferior piece of marble and nobody else wanted it, and that's why Michelangelo got it. But it's just carved out of marble, last I checked, for both timelines. They cleaned it with raw steel brushes. You know what? WAPO will never let me in. Alright, let's see what the story of it is. So yeah, no, I mean, unless it's some kind of secret storyline, but the official storyline is they are solid marble. There's a nice photo of it. Look at how upset he looks. Yeah, I don't remember him all leaning on one foot like that either. It's kind of a weird thing. I don't remember, actually, I have to say, he's got really big hands this timeline, too. I don't remember that. Not that I mean anything by it, but... Okay, so... Commissioned to create a statue. Offered a colossal block of marble, which had been previously worked by 2 other artists. So no, that's not what I got. I got that all he could afford was this kind of inferior piece. But somehow he managed to carve it. Both artists had abandoned their work after noticing imperfections in the marble's grain. But despite these flaws, Michelangelo took up the monumental challenge of carving the figure. So for me, though, there were not the story of 2 previous artists. Okay, installation. The finished statue was popularly known as the Giant. Became a symbol of liberty for the Florentine people. The Grand Duke of Tuscany commissioned Clementi Poppi, the royal bronze founder, to produce an exact replica in bronze that could be used to test a suitable location. However, in the end, the sculpture was reproduced in plaster, and so begins the history of our cast. So they made a plaster copy now. So they made a whole identical plaster copy that cost $1 kajillion just to test out the final location? I've never heard that story before. Yeah, see, there's nothing about, there's a bunch of Tartarian architecture for you. Definitely. So there's the whole story that's not really it, and all of it, it's like a perfect identical cast that cost $1 kajillion, and yeah. You gotta wonder if that's gonna turn out to be some kind of cover story, actually. And that maybe that was the real thing. I don't know. That's it. I don't see it. Yep. Men don't tuck their knee in like a woman. Yes, it's a rather feminine pose, isn't it? He doesn't have horns yet. Yeah, I totally agree about the expression. God, you know, I'm trying to rack my brains. There was something about that freaking fig leaf. Didn't they keep it on him or something? I don't know. That something's bugging me about that. Like, I'm not remembering it right. But I can't dig it out of my head. my brain keeps pinging on that. Like there's something wrong with that storyline, that it different. Prune fingers. Anybody have a problem with them lately? No, I think I've been all right. Okay, so the last one is, what is that? I don't know if you saw the thumbnail, but what is that thing? So this has happened with a lot of birds now. Really? I mean, like, if you saw this. If you're going to load. What the bleep? Okay, so apparently now this bird has a full face inside his mouth. Like it's a fake face. But I don't know what good that's supposed to do. He opens his mouth. He has got eyes and a mouth inside his mouth. I don't know. They're going to say it stimulates feeding. I don't know. But I don't see any benefit of having a fake-looking mouth inside your mouth. I mean, getting pecked in the mouth is not going to be much better than being pecked on the actual face. So this Coua bird has a whole mouth inside its face. Only as a chick, apparently. There's some other birds that are having this weird look, too, now. Like, I talked before about, like, lizards were starting to have colors inside their mouth, which I never saw before. The mouths are just mouth-colored. But in this timeline, the whole weird stuff going on inside the mouth is a thing. Oh, here's the image with the different birds. So an owlfinch has that in the mouth. This is a starfinch, plumhead finch, Gouldian finch. Now here's the funny part, because I know people who raise Gouldian finches. I never saw that. And you can even see these weird bump things on, like, when its mouth is closed. Hex, shaft tail, mask, grass finch. So all these birds are getting, like, weird secret code inside their mouth. I saw this one kind of recently, but only just now did I see this Coua bird, which totally takes the cake. So that is my last one. He looked serene before. Yes, I agree with you. Yes, he looked quite placid, serene. Now he looks troubled, angry, upset, agitated. Another art piece we lost. Yeah, pretty much. It's not nice like it was. So yeah, there's like this, that stuff by his feet are like this tree trunk stuff. Yeah, I know. I don't remember seeing that tree trunk last time, that's for sure. He's upset because he's not in his timeline. Yeah, he's like, that face is me. Sometimes when I see another Mandela Effect, I'm like, what? What? Squinting, looking a little crabby. Oh yeah, anyways, at least you remember my old David, even if you don't remember my old eBay. So I will forgive you all. And thank you so much for coming. Look at this. I had a whole, maybe we must be like in a quiet period, because I've had a whole show without any loss of signal. I don't remember talking about that tree trunk on his leg. You remember all the eBays. You've been through all the timelines. Except for that one person, remember capital E, capital B. That one I have not heard. There must be, I don't know, I'm going to get another capital and it'll be capital Y or something. I don't know. All right, guys. So anyways, thank you for coming. Very much appreciate it. And thank you for all the comments. I'm almost caught up with the comments for this week, so I'll try to get on that. I'm only missing a few of them. So, think good thoughts, everyone. This is Eva signing off for Once Upon a Timeline.